Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 67 with Sahara Rose. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when she breaks down the 3 different doshas and how this not only affects your health, but every area of your life. I also loved hearing about her journey and how she went from being unwell to thriving, and how she got Deepak Chopra to write the foreword to her book, and how we can rebalance our doshas to create equilibrium in our body, mind, and soul. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration you get in the full episode. So, to listen to the full episode and get all the info in the show notes, head to melissaambrosini.com/67 right now. Sahara, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have this chat with you. For those who have never heard about Ayurveda or really know what it is, can you please explain it to us in layman's terms?
Ayurveda is the world's oldest health system. It originated in ancient India over 5,000 years ago, and it's the sister science of yoga. So a lot of us, we practice yoga to be more healthy or more balanced or more flexible or release anxiety. But really, when we're practicing for any health reason, we're truly practicing Ayurveda. So yoga is the practice of becoming one with source. It's a spiritual practice, whereas Ayurveda is a mental and physical practice. It is used to heal your body, to balance any stress, and also to fine-tune your system with nature, because according to Ayurveda, we are a reflection of the natural elements. Just like in Chinese medicine, it's based off of these elements, and we each have different amounts, which are called the doshas, which we'll definitely go through very deeply in this episode. So essentially, Ayurveda is an integrative health system from India.
Okay, great. Now, how did you get into this? Like, where did it all begin? Like, did you grow up in a family where it was practiced? Like, how did you get into it?
Not at all. I grew up eating junk food. I was, the junk food queen. I would eat McDonald's and Taco Bell and all the things. And when I was about 12 years old, I had really bad asthma. I was overweight. I couldn't go outside. I literally, every time it was recess and the kids went to play, I had to sit outside the principal's office because I would get asthma attacks. So at that age, I knew I needed to lose weight and get healthier. So I saw a nearby hot yoga studio, and I read in, Cosmo magazine or something that yoga can help you lose weight. So I was like, okay, I'll go. And I started going and realizing that, oh, wow, this is more than a physical practice. There's so much more to this. So I started reading books by people like Deepak Chopra and all of these different things and getting more acquainted with Vedic philosophy. And then as I got healthier and I felt better, not just physically, but also mentally. So I went down the path of, researching and getting healthier. And eventually I became a raw vegan. So I thought that being a raw vegan is like the ultimate pinnacle of health. Like, what could be better than only eating raw fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds? And I lived in Boston, which is like freezing cold. It's like Antarctica, especially in the winter. So there I am drinking all the coconut water, eating pineapple and tons of leafy greens. And at the beginning, I felt really great. But after about 8 months in, I started to feel really depleted. And I would get dizzy all the time. I would faint. I stopped getting my period for 2 years. People would just come up to me and be like, "Are you okay? Like, you don't really look good. You look kind of sick." And I'm like, how could that be? I'm eating all the smoothies. I'm having all the spirulina. And it kind of became an ideology for me. I was just so fixated on, this is the way, this is what makes sense to me on paper. Cooking food kills all the enzymes. So being raw must be the best way. And I wasn't listening to my body telling me, this is not working for you. So at the time, I was volunteering in India, again, not working in a health-related field at all. And I decided to visit an Ayurvedic doctor while I was there because I had heard about Ayurveda. I also did IIN like yourself, and I'd heard about it, knew a little bit about it, but honestly, I didn't really trust it. So I thought it would be a fun cultural experience, see what the doctor has to say. And they started to ask me questions about my body and my dreams and all of these things that no one's ever asked me before. Like, no digestive doctor is going to be like, what kind of dreams do you have? Are you moving, or is it really realistic? So all these weird questions. And the doctor essentially told me that my vata, my air and space energy were so out of balance that when I was 21 years old, I was already infertile. I was at risk of premature osteoporosis and arthritis, and also early stage Alzheimer's. So my body was basically shutting down totally. And I wasn't listening to it because I was so fixated on raw vegan being the ultimate solution. So I asked the doctor, well, what do I do? All of these things you're saying sound true. And I really want to fix my body. And the doctor's like, Vin, you have to eat the ghee and the rice and the dal and the paneer and like all of these like really traditional Indian foods. And I was a vegan. So there's no way I was going to go from kale smoothies to butter and cheese and all of these things that they were suggesting me. So I kind of was like, I don't really know if Ayurveda is for me, put it aside. And he told me some symptoms that were going to happen, and slowly through over that year, all of those things happened. And at that time, I tried to become my own doctor. I tried to be paleo. I tried to be macrobiotic. I tried to do everything in between. And finally, I was like, I put my hands in the air. I was like, okay, I'll just try some of this Ayurveda stuff. I'll see if it works, but make it my own way. So instead of, doing ghee, I started to use coconut oil. Instead of doing lots of rice, I'd use quinoa. I sort of modernized it and made it more plant-based. And I felt so much better. I realized that it wasn't normal to, wake up in the middle of the night and to, have insomnia. I thought everyone had this. I realized it wasn't normal to eat a meal and feel like you're 8 months pregnant immediately after. All of these things that I had just dealt with for so long were actually signs of my body that I did not know the language for. So I decided to go back to India and study Ayurveda. I ended up studying Ayurveda for 2 years. I graduated with a degree in Ayurvedic nutrition and cooking. And I wrote my first book there called Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. And flash forward 2 years later, the publisher Penguin Random House contacted me, and I wrote the official Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, which is now the best-selling Ayurveda book in the world, and work with Deepak Chopra. And modernizing Ayurveda has truly, truly become my path. I know that it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone through all those health problems myself.
How did you get Deepak Chopra to write the foreword to your book? Like, that is just what an amazing achievement. You should be so proud. Tell us about that.
When I wrote The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, I really believed, the ultimate person to write a quote or something for this would be Deepak Chopra. But I didn't know how I would ever meet him or anything like that. It felt so out of reach. It felt like, Oprah or something. So I was at a conference that a friend of mine invited me to, and it was a yoga science conference. He was not listed on the conference at all. And it was about to be lunchtime, and I was actually planning on leaving right when they announced lunch and going back. And the announcer said, and a word from our sponsor, Deepak Chopra, and he walks on stage. And I was like, my spirit guide, something came through me and was like, girl, you need to go there and talk to him. This is your chance. Because I had stalked his kids. I had stalked everyone. So I literally walk through an auditorium of 1,000 people. I walk onto stage where I am not a speaker, and I walk right up to him. No, you
didn't.
No, seriously. I walk right up to him.
Was this while he was giving his speech?
No, he just came on. He just said, hi, hello, thanks everyone. And then they announced lunch. So I wasn't that crazy that he was like talking. So he wasn't really meant to be a speaker or anything there. He was just the sponsor. So he's kind of talking to people, and I just kind of like walk up to him. And then when he's done talking to the person, I just went in there and I introduced myself, and I just told him what an influence he's been on my life and how I wouldn't have been introduced to Ayurveda if it wasn't for his book, Perfect Health, which came out in 1991. And that I wrote The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, and it's going to bring Ayurveda more into the mainstream, especially with the younger and millennial audience, and that I would love for him to look through it. So he said, okay. And he gave me his contact information. I remember just being like, I have Deepak Chopra's phone number, like freaking out. And then we talked on the phone, which was crazy. And he said that he happened to be going back to San Diego, and I live in Los Angeles. So we met, and then he kind of interviewed me, asked me questions, and it went well. And since that day, he's been so supportive. We did a 31-day challenge together up to the launch of my book, Integrating Ayurvedic Wisdom. He just opened up a center in Pondicherry, India. It's an Ayurvedic healing center. So we're going to be leading a retreat there. And he's just been such a support. And, if you just go out there and you say what you want and you follow through with it, the universe will give it to you.
All right. So let's talk about the 3 doshas. Can you please explain these to us?
Yes. So the doshas are like the bread and butter of Ayurveda. The word dosha actually means energy. So there are essentially 3 energy types. There's 3 doshas, but they consist of 5 elements. And these 5 elements are air, space, fire, water, and earth. So they come together and create the three doshas. Vata, which is the first two, air and space. Pitta, which is fire and water. And Kapha, which is water and earth. So everything can be described as these three doshas, from the foods we're eating to the weather to our personality types, our digestive types. They're essentially language that we can use to better understand ourselves in the world that we live in. So we were each born with a combination of all three doshas. No one's just one dosha. We're all three doshas, but in varying amounts. So some of us are born with more vata characteristics, so air, space, which is cold energy, dry energy. I'll go more into it in a sec. Some of us are born with more pitta energy, which is fire and water, both really powerful energies. And some of us are born with more earthy and watery energies, which is more relaxed and cooling. So it's not based off of your birthday or anything like that, like astrology is, but it's actually based off of your DNA. So you can tell by someone's physiology, by their digestion, by their metabolic rate, all of these different scientific indicators tell us what their dosha constitution is. People who are vata, I like to just call vata the wind dosha because it has the exact same qualities as the wind. So when you think about the wind, what qualities come to mind?
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Cold. It's dry. It's unpredictable. You never know which way the wind is going to blow. It can go one direction and the next. It's very changeable. Every day it's different. So these are essentially the qualities of vata. So people who have a lot of vata-like mental characteristics, they have more airy personalities. So if someone's really airy, you think of them to be kind of like, maybe one day they are really into one thing and the next day they're into another. Someone who's really airy might be at the same time really artistic, really creatively inclined. Pitta is comprised of two elements that may seem like they're contradicting, but they actually are both very powerful, fire and water. There are no elements more powerful than that. So I like to just call Pitta the fire dosha because that's really what the qualities are like. So if someone has a very fiery personality, what do you think they're like?
They might be a little bit aggressive. They might be sharp or like a bit snappy. They also could be quite go-getters because they've got that firecracker up their butt, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You nailed it. So fiery people, they know what they want. They're very goal-oriented. They're the type of people who wake up in the morning, they have an agenda, they have a schedule, and they really like to stick to it. And if they don't, if something throws it off, they can snap. So the fire is really good when it's pointed into one direction, but when the fire goes haywire, just like what we had going on in Los Angeles last month, it can turn into a disaster. So now the last dosha, Kapha. So Kapha is comprised of earth and water energy. I like to think of it as just the earth. So someone who's really earthy might talk a little bit like this. And they breathe really slowly. You know those people who they're like, really in their bodies and you're like, okay, get to the point, come on. And they're like just meditating on each word. So that's Kapha right there. And if you have more Vata and Pitta, you're like, okay, get moving. So Kapha is earth. It's warm. It's motherly. The earth gives. The earth is the provider. The earth is the sustainer. It's the life force. And that's really what Kapha is. I like to think of Kapha as grandmother energy, as Oprah energy. It's like you just want to like go into her arms and nestle up and just like cry about your problems, and you know that she'll be there for you. Like that's Kapha right there. Like Kaphas will hold it down. They can handle anything. They keep their cool. So in Ayurveda, we have two different doshic constitutions. One is called your prakriti. So prakriti. And that basically is your natural born constitution, what you were born with. It's like the deck of cards you were handed, having brown hair and blue eyes, etc. So that's your prakriti. So let's say your prakriti was primarily vata, secondarily pitta, lastly kapha. Mine, for example, was more kapha, secondarily vata, lastly pitta. Then in our life, maybe we value different things. Maybe we grow up in a colder environment or a warmer environment, or, the things that we're surrounded with change. So that will change our dosha constitution. That's called our vikriti. So our vikriti is our current dosha constitution. So for example, trying to run your own business, it's going to naturally bring up your pitta. If you don't have it, you won't be able to fulfill all the parts. So that's going to bring your pitta up. So maybe you're experiencing more of the pitta related things, the pitta imbalances but it's because you're more pitta than you were naturally meant to be.
Understanding the three different doshas doesn't just affect our health, but it affects every area of our life, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even just in relationships, like Vata people, for example, they may just be a little bit more aloof. For them, they don't need to always express how they're feeling. They kind of expect the other person to just know. So this could be a problem if, let's say, you're Kapha and you really need to talk about everything. So just these different dynamics, by knowing your partner's dosha, by knowing your friends and your colleagues' doshas, you'll be better able to communicate with them. The Vata person needs that freedom. They need their creative exploration. The Pitta person, they need a plan. They need to know, okay, what's going to happen. Otherwise, they're not going to be okay. And the Kapha person, you just need to be a little bit more patient with them, because if you come through with that Pitta energy, they may take it the wrong way.
How does your dosha connect with your dharma, which is your life's purpose?
Yes. So we were each born with a unique purpose that only we can fulfill. You can call it your dreams, you call it your desires. So in Vedic philosophy, they call it dharma. Each of us were born with unique strengths, unique gifts, unique talents, and they're not an accident. They're not a coincidence. It's because that's exactly how we were meant to serve in this world. So for example, Nick, who's naturally more Vata, obviously his music is a huge part of his dharma. He was given this talent of singing and creating music because he was meant to share it. For you, leading a business, being a leader, being a thought leader, being someone that people look up to, running things, managing things, you were given these strengths that naturally you can do it. You are the right person to do it. And that's why you desire to do it. Someone who's more Kapha, like myself, I was naturally born with the gift to really be able to receive people, to be able to hold space for them, be able to listen to them. So for me, coaching was something that I always wanted to do. If I didn't have that patience, maybe I would have snapped at people or, just thrown my hands up and walked away. So we were each born with the exact things that we need to do. So for a lot of people who are confused, what's my purpose? Just see what you're naturally good at. So Vata people who are more artistic need to be working in some sort of field, whether if they're not an artist, even if they're working at an ad agency or just doing something creative, even if it's in your free time. But a dharma is really taking that hobby or whatever it is and making it part of your greater purpose, because when you're doing something part-time, it just kind of remains there. But when you fully dive into something and give it your everything, the universe responds and it will show up in a much bigger way. So Vata people need to be channeling their creativity. Pitta people need to be channeling their leadership. And Kapha people need to be working one-on-one with people, communicating with people, because that's really how they feel special and important. And that's what the world needs. If everyone just rose up and fulfilled their dharma, the world would come back into balance. So really all of the issues we're experiencing right now are because not enough people are stepping up to their dharma role. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for the entire planet.